Welcome back. Week 11 in the National Football League. That's Walt from Walter Football. I'm Eytan from Odd Shopper. We go 3-2 on the show, 2-2-1 on the card, only because we pushed Detroit. But as we tell you all the time, if you're watching here late in the week when the two of us do this show, the line on what you bet is different than what we may get on the contest. So congratulations out there. If you tailed our 5 plays, you went 3-2. Walter, how we feeling today?
Feeling good. A lot of high spreads this week, which I actually like. I was actually going back and reviewing every single pick I made earlier in the years because I'm a little crazy. But I found that I've done the best with high spread games. So I'm pretty excited about this card. How are you?
Nice, doing well, man. No complaints overall. Interested to see where we go here on all of these different games, especially as we build this card right now. And I am eagerly anticipating a back and forth on at least one super large dog. So let's get things going. But before that, we invite you, hit the thumbs up button. Make sure you're subscribed here and well aware of what's going on over there at walterfootball.com. You just saw that breeze by the way. Charlie Campbell's mocks are out and everything there. You guys own the draft. You've got NFL picks, college football picks. You've got confidence pool. You've got survivor pool. Anything that somebody wants, DFS and beyond, is on the site.
Yeah, everything. Yeah, Charlie just updated his mock draft today, which is always exciting because he actually talks to people around the NFL. So like when you see guys highly in his mock draft and maybe they're not in other mock drafts, it's because some people around the NFL told him to put those players high in the mock drafts. And then, once April rolls around, we'll actually know who's going to which teams. And I think we have only lost in like one draft prop in the past 2 years, which was the Seahawks going with Jalen Carter. They must have changed their mind at the last second, but like we've nailed everything else. So yeah, I'm excited for April. It's always a great time to bet those draft props.
All right, my friend, let's go ahead and do it. And we'll build this tab over on DK. We remind you, we've got links. Walt's got a whole page worth of links. So if you're on a different book or you're not on DK, plenty of opportunity to sign up, sign on, what have you. Let's start in Carolina. And this is one, remember, we talked about this weird thing that Dak just struggles in these road games between home games and the same circumstance, or I should say the same end with different circumstances. It wasn't his fault, technically, against the Philadelphia Eagles, but they've come up short against Arizona in this spot. They've come up short in Philadelphia in this spot. And this is the final time now that Dak and the Cowboys, Walter, are away between a pair of home games. Any interest in the 10.5?
Yeah, I like the 10.5 with Carolina. I think the spread's a little too high. The Panthers, since their bye, have actually played pretty well. They beat the Texans, which is at the time it wasn't maybe that impressive, but the Texans haven't lost since. They lost to the Colts by 2 touchdowns, but remember they got picked 6 twice in that game. Otherwise, they outgained the Colts 275 to 198. So I thought they were the better team outside of those 2 plays. And then against the Bears, they lost, but they were missing a lot of players, including Brian Burns, who's going to be back this week, presumably. So the Panthers, since their bye, I think they're 11th in defensive EPA because they've gotten a lot of players back from injury. So I think they could slow down Dallas a little bit. And Carolina's big issue outside of maybe Bryce Young is their blocking. But their blocking problems are in their interior and not on the edge. And Dallas gets all their pressure on the edge. So it just seems like this is a good matchup for the Panthers, as crazy as it sounds. And Dallas has a Thanksgiving game coming up in 4 days, so they could be looking ahead. So, I think there's a lot of value here with Carolina.
Yeah, I totally agree. Nothing to add to this by any means. It's similar to just us having no opinion on a game, so we move on. Now, again, just looking at the lines here, and of course I had it now. I don't know what happened to it, but I'll pull them back up. Make sure that we're making sure that everything is intact with what we're betting, of course, versus the lines as they adjust, because our lines are locked in Wednesday evening, right, Walt?
Yeah, Wednesday at 9, they get published. So this Dallas game is still 10.5 on the Super Contest card. So sometimes you can use that to your advantage. Like last year when the Chargers versus Jaguars, when Justin Herbert was going to be ruled out, that line dropped from 7 to 3, but you still have the 7. So taking the Jaguars plus 7 is a no brainer.
7.5 here, same that we have at the contest of the Super Contest is Everybody here sees it for Detroit, Chicago. I'm inclined just on first glance to lay the 7.5, but this is not a pick that I'm rushing to bet in a contest necessarily in the window. Maybe if people want to squeeze a teaser or something like that out, but ultimately this would be a pass for me in the sense of I wasn't jumping up and down like I was with Carolina to take the points with Chicago.
Yeah, I like Chicago here. It seems like a high number with Justin Fields coming back from injury. Like at the very least, he's going to be in position to get a backdoor cover. If you think about it, Detroit was -9 against Carolina. This is back when Carolina had a lot of injuries and wasn't playing well, and this is 7.5. So they're saying that that I like those two teams are close together. Like Chicago
Right.
with Justin Fields versus Carolina with all those injuries. That doesn't make any sense to me. I think this line is way too high. I think the sportsbooks got trapped here. They opened the line, I think, at like 10 or something, or maybe 10.5. But I don't think they anticipated Justin Fields coming back. So they can't really push this through 7 because they risk getting middled. So I think that they're trapped with this bad line. And it's not a surprise that all the sharp money is coming out of Chicago, which I think this is just too out of whack. Plus, Detroit also has Thanksgiving coming up against Green Bay. And like, granted, Green Bay sucks, but it's still like a marquee game for Detroit on Thanksgiving. They haven't won a Thanksgiving game in almost a decade. So they're going to be like psyched up for that game. And I don't know, flying back from the West Coast after a big statement game against the Chargers, I feel like this is going to be a flat spot for Detroit. And like I said, backdoor cover is definitely possible here.
Yeah, man, Fields, it kind of felt like when Murray came back initially, just how much, but this wasn't as nearly severe of an injury. So I definitely can understand that middle there. All right, well, look, we'll leave it up by all means. Raiders on the road against Miami. It's hard to ignore what the Raiders have done since firing McDaniels and benching Garoppolo, but at the same time, it's really difficult to ignore the gap, Walt, in offenses faced between their 2 wins and now the Miami Dolphins, coming off a bye, mind you, right?
Yeah. So yeah, what have they done exactly? They're 2-0, but they beat the Giants when Daniel Jones got hurt, and it seemed like
Correct.
the Giants gave up in that game. It was 7-0 when he went down, and the Giants defense looked like they just laid an egg because they knew they couldn't win with Tommy DeVito. And then last week against the Jets outgained them in yards and yards per play. It was just Zach Wilson imploding in the red zone that gave the Raiders the win. And so, like, if Zach Wilson doesn't throw that interception, the Jets win. I think we're looking at this game a little differently. And the Raiders, before those 2 games, they got blown out at Chicago and Detroit. I feel like they could easily get blown out here. Like, this is going to be the first time Aidan O'Connell is going to have to be in a shootout. I just don't see him keeping up with Tua, especially off a bye. The Dolphins might get Devon Achane back from injury. They're going to have Jalen Ramsey more integrated in the defense. Xavier Howard's going to be healthier. They're missing, like, it seemed like every week they're missing at least someone in their secondary, and now everyone's going to be back. I think Miami is just way too good for the Raiders. I can see this being a blowout, like pretty easily.
So do you want to add them to the card? 13.5.
Yeah, I'm considering the Dolphins for my card, so
Okay.
They could be in there.
Steelers, Browns, this clearly has been bet down since the Deshaun Watson news. It's not new for Cleveland to play without. The buyback here is definitely on Cleveland since it's moved through 3, especially on the contest where we get this at 1. Not that there's a difference really in 1.5. I'm just saying there's a big difference between 3 and where we are right now. So you're taking the extreme worst of it. If you do like Pittsburgh, this is a great buyback spot for Cleveland to essentially just win the game.
Yeah. So Dorian Thompson-Robinson was so bad in that game that he started in week 4. Like, if you look at the metrics, like, he was just way worse than even some of the worst quarterbacks we've seen. Like, Brian Hoyer looked like Dan Marino compared to him. Like, he's just so bad. But now he has extra practice time, and I think there's a reason why the Browns are starting him. Like, he had to have looked good in practice, and so like he looked great in the preseason. So I think there's a chance that he bounces back. And if we hadn't seen that one game from him, I think that there would be a lot more enthusiasm to bet the Browns, but I think people are kind of hesitant to do that. So I think I'm willing to do it. I'm not in love with this because Cleveland's missing their top 2 tackles, and they might be missing their 3rd tackle too, DeJuan Jones, who I think he's questionable. But yeah, I think I'm inclined to go with Cleveland here, but I'm not in love with it.
No, me neither. I'll leave it off for now, depending on how. Look, if we're short, we can come back to it by all means. But there is that sense of, similar to Vegas, how long until some stuff catches up to you. And that was a gigantic victory in which they didn't lead for basically the entire game up until the final couple of seconds. Division opponent, I get it now, but that was against Baltimore, which is always, record aside for Pittsburgh, Baltimore is the team to beat. It just felt like a lot was put into that. And now here comes Pittsburgh. I don't know. It's enough for me to kind of stay away. You're not in love with it, so we can move on and come back to that if need be. Arizona getting 6 on the road at Houston. Talk about a team, and look ahead. Well, the look ahead line for this before Murray and everything and what Houston did, it's probably flipped. My guess would be Arizona was laying 6 or something like that on the road right now. Clearly a different story. 6 is still fine. And if you look at where we are in the contest as well, it's 5. So if you like the Texans, you are getting that just under that key number of 6. I don't know how much you're getting with Arizona at 5 versus 6 anyway, but it just feels Arizona's got some momentum going. Kyler Murray is back, but Houston is a tough team to fade right now, even with that win and possible letdown.
Yeah, it was a big win on the road, so you have to wonder if they're going to have a letdown. But the fact that they're playing Kyler Murray, I think may like Arizona may be on the radar too. So it is tough because next week they have Jacksonville, so they could be looking ahead. It's a rough spot. But the fact that the line has gone to 6, despite all the public money being on Arizona, kind of has to set up a red flag if you like Arizona. 6 is the third most likely result of any NFL game. So the fact that we have Houston -5 in the contest makes them look a little appealing. But like I said, this is a real tough scheduling spot for Houston, and Arizona could definitely get a backdoor cover. But then again, like Arizona's defense is so bad, it feels like CJ Stroud should be able to score on like every possession.
Yeah, we've got another next game. I'm going to have some thoughts on here. So knowing where we stand with a couple more here, should we just leave this off for now? Again, we're getting a point. We're getting a little slight edge, as you referenced, for Houston at -5. But I feel like Cleveland, I don't want to really force this one either.
Yeah, I think we could move on.
Okay.
If we were still getting 5, like in real life, I think I'd have a slight interest, but 6, not really.
Well, okay. Titans, Jags, this is at 7. The numbers, man, are ridiculous, right? 29, 20, and 1 as an underdog ATS, just career for Mike Vrabel. He's 6-1-1 ATS as a dog coming off back-to-back losses. It's the key number outside of 3, the second biggest, most key, if you will, number across the board. Jags, okay, bounce back time and all that from that devastating loss that we saw. This is a division game against a coach that knows Jacksonville. 7 points, even not getting that hook. 7 seems like a lot to pass up. It's what Vrabel does.
Yeah.
But Will Levis is that bad. Say it.
He was terrible last week against the Buccaneers, who had the worst pass defense in the NFL.
Bucks, to lose that game is inexcusable.
6 points he scored. It's not like he lost in the shootout or something, which I could forgive him for. Right. Like 6 points against the worst pass defense in the NFL. The pass protection was a big issue. He just couldn't stay upright, and Jacksonville gets after the quarterback. So like Mike Vrabel's, you mentioned his underdog numbers. He's even better as an underdog of 3 or more. He's 24-11 against the spread in his career as an underdog of three or more. The problem, though, is like I feel like this is just like way out of his weight class here. It reminds me of week 3 when the Titans played against the Browns, and the Browns were 3.5-point favorites. And like Cleveland was coming off that Monday night loss to Pittsburgh, where they looked so bad, like with all those turnovers. Deshaun Watson looked horrible, and like no one wanted to bet the Browns at -3.5. And what happened? Like Cleveland destroyed Tennessee. I just think that like Jacksonville is just so much better than Tennessee, and the fact that they're coming off an embarrassing loss like that makes me like them a lot. And that's one of my favorite angles, is like to take good teams coming off embarrassing losses. This didn't work last week with Seattle, but it's right. Won every single time this year. And it like the numbers, if you want them, are teams with winning percentages of 60 or higher coming off losses of 24 or more. They're 83-48 against the spread, dating back to 1989. That's as far as my database goes. So like this is an angle that works so much throughout the years, just to go with a good team embarrassed. And, the fact that Seattle lost last week kind of makes me wonder if Seattle is just not a good team and maybe we should be fading them this week. But, we'll get to that later. But I think that Jacksonville is the right side. I think that, I think Jacksonville could easily destroy the Titans. And they did that last year in the first matchup. They beat them pretty easily. So I think they can do that again.
It's amazing that there's been no movement. This was a 7-point, right? Open here.
I think it opened at 6.
Oh, 5. No, 6. Okay, so it did move. It did move up. Sorry.
Yeah.
Maybe 5.5, depending on where you're looking at for a blink of an eye. But it's technically, as we're talking right now, it's technically still available at 6.5.
Yeah, you could probably find some sports books though.
BetMGM. So go ahead, use Walt's link for BetMGM. Sign up.
That's right. Yeah, Leah, please do that. Yeah, you definitely want to shop around. That's it's a good edge to have. 7, as you said, like the most key number except for 3. So to get the 7 is pretty crucial here. So especially because it seemed like there's definitely some pro money that bet this up from 5.5 to 7. Like that 5.5 disappeared so quickly.
Right, especially with Vrabel's record and all, just nobody was buying into it. All right, we'll put Jacksonville up there by all means. I love the bounce back angle as well. 34-3 to San Fran, and definitely going to be a lot talked and discussed in the locker room, especially with Doug Peterson kind of lighting a fire and all. So can buy that for sure. Vrabel is only limited, I should say, is really limited by the talent and personnel that he has. And really, that loss against the Bucs was just terrible, inexcusable. Giants and Commanders, this is at 9 right now. So we have 2 more 1:00 Eastern games to look at. A bunch 4 on the card so far. So we'll get through a little bit more here. This is 9. And again, this was bet up, not a ton. It opened at 8. So you saw a little bit of movement towards Washington. This is really just about your belief in the Commanders, specifically Sam Howell, who even in a loss looked fine, and the Giants, who just look lost.
Yeah, this line is so weird to me because these teams met in week 7, and it was a 14-7 game where the Giants beat Washington, and the 7 points that Washington scored came off a muff punt. Like Sam Howell, he looked good last week, and he looked great against the Eagles, but he looks so lost against the Giants, and I think it's because the Giants blitz so much, and Sam Howell has looked so bad against the blitz. So, if you only score 7 again, the Giants are a free play, right? But even if you double that, or even if you give him 17, all the Giants need is 9 against one of the worst defenses in the NFL. I know that backing Tommy DeVito just seems so disgusting.
It's a tough one, right?
It is tough to swallow, but man, the Washington's defense is that bad. I feel like he could have a half decent performance. Washington has allowed the most completions of 50 yards or more this year, and Washington's also bad against scrambling quarterbacks. So that's what Tommy DeVito does. So I think that this is gonna be a low scoring game. I think I could see 16-10 or something like that. The Giants cover the 9. A team as bad as Washington should never be favored by this many points. I
get that.
Yeah. So I'm on the Giants, but yeah, go ahead.
Are you going to put are the Giants making the gold card?
I think they might. Yeah.
No,
as crazy as it sounds, it's
get out of here.
I don't care who Washington's playing against. It could be Tommy DeVito, it could be Danny DeVito. I don't care. It doesn't matter. They should never be favored by 9.
I get it. I get it. All right, let's come back to that one there. It's just this. Okay. Here's the thing. I would never lay the 9 in this scenario. So to your point, it's not like I'm on Washington. It's just me coming to grips with the Giants as an actual play versus taking the other side. I just want to get that out there. I'm not by any means a proponent for laying 9 points with Washington, as you mentioned, against anybody. So let's come back to that and see where we are. This is dipped. I got in right away. Shout out if you're part of the Discord here for the Odd Shopper community, because we got in at 3.5 and just expected line movement here. And the big thing was, You talked about Bryce Young and some poor performance towards the end. I think similar can be excused away here with Jordan Love. The Chargers come off just beating up bad squads. Packers at 3.5 made a ton of sense for me to get ahead of that movement there. That's getting ahead of line movement. We're locked into 3 on the contest. So knowing that you had 3.5 for Green Bay and now it's down to 3, that may change your opinion on this game if you were on Green Bay in the first place.
Yeah, probably, but man, I just don't have a good lean on this game. It's just like both sides seem so unappealing to me. Like Green Bay is just so bad. The only team they've beaten since week 3 is the Rams with Brett Rippon. And so like the Chargers, I feel like should be able to score pretty easily against Green Bay's defense, which is just like ravaged by injuries. Like I don't even know if Jair Alexander's coming back this week. But then again, like I don't really trust the Chargers on the road. Like if this is a close game,
right,
it's like the Chargers are going to find a way to lose. So they need to win this game in a blowout, which I guess could happen because Green Bay's been that bad. But I don't know if you want to count on that. So yeah, this is one I have zero opinion on. So if it's the 3.5, maybe some interest.
3.5, it's different, right? And
yeah,
the key for me though was also just it's amazing because it seems like every week the Chargers are rewriting season highs and what they give up on defense, or they're close to it. I think 3 of the last 6 or maybe 8 games, you've seen just rewriting. Oh, another season high on defense. That would be the kicker for me on a Packers team that's been blah, really just kind of there on offense. The opportunities, it feels like the opportunities you're going to get with the Chargers defense will outweigh, at home at least, will outweigh what Justin Herbert can do as far as you just limiting him. But again, I don't want to force you into something if you have nothing, by all means. It was just, again, a lot about movement right away when this thing opened up. Niners and Bucks, they're at 12 right here. And I mean, last week, all right, let's do this. Let's just remind everybody what's going on walterfootball.com, because we should really dive into this Bucks team and really what they are and how shitty of a situation it is overall. But great things, as you can see, going on here. walterfootball.com will remind you before we get out of here. I just wanted to highlight some things happening. Best sportsbook promos, okay? So you need to go somewhere. You need to sign up. BetMGM. You want to get the Jags at 6.5. Go ahead. Right on walterfootball.com. It's the first thing you'll see when you scroll down. Sportsbook promos. You'll sign up at BetMGM. Put $1,500 on that sucker. If you miss it, you'll get it right back, right? So what's the big deal?
Yeah, you get money back. Like what's like there's no issue there. You get $1,500 pay back and bonus bets if you don't win. So seems like a great deal to me. So yeah, you get all these props or all these sportsbook promos here all on one page. So definitely take advantage of that if you can. But yeah, otherwise on the site we have updated picks throughout the week, college football picks. So that obviously goes live tomorrow, and fantasy football rankings, stardom, situm, etc. Like everything is at walterfootball.com.
All right, my friend. It's hard for me to think that there's any letdown for San Francisco. So the reason why 12 is appealing for me is twofold. First off, Tampa Bay is not who Tampa Bay was last week. The Titans are, and we talked about that earlier, and that's why I think we need to go. Oh, Jacksonville is on. Okay, I just want to double check. That's why the Jags, even at 7, are on this thing. The Titans just embarrassed themselves, and the Bucs did not get any better as a result of that. If the Niners had not lost 3 straight before coming out and snapping that win streak, I feel like there would be more of an argument, Walt, that this would be a letdown and that this would be, they come back. This team is let all their letdowns go. Like they used them all up in that little 3-game losing streak right now. They've got no choice but to come out and start hammering. This is as close to style points as you'll ever get in the NFL, I think, for the Niners. So that's my argument for San Fran.
Yeah, I think it's a great argument because, I think you're totally right. If they had won 2 of 3 of those games, then I think you could maybe make the case that they're going to look ahead to that Thanksgiving game they had, the tryptophan game at the end against Seattle. But like they they've owned Seattle. So like even though that's a divisional matchup, I don't know how much they're going to be looking ahead to that, because like not only did they beat Seattle 3 times last year, like all 3 games are blowouts. So even though they have the same record and that means a lot for the divisional race, I think they're pretty confident that they can win that game. So yeah, I just like having like the Niners having lost 3 of 4. Like I just don't see them having this letdown, especially with Tampa Bay coming off a win. Like Tampa Bay has a respectable record at 4-5. Like they're not nearly as good as that record, but that could get the Niners' attention. It's not like they're 1-8 or something. So yeah, I think the Niners should be able to win this game pretty easily. Like they're one of the best teams in the NFL, maybe the best, and then Tampa is a bottom 5 team. So this just seems like such a lopsided matchup.
They really are such a bad football team.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see that. And look, maybe human nature settles in and, it's 10-3 or 13-3 at the half, but ultimately San Fran is going to pull away and a couple of big plays. Just, it's the old cartoon, right? Where the little guy's trying to hit, and then the big guy's just got his arm out. And Tampa's not coming back, even with that offense and Baker. No. All right. I am very curious as to where you want to go here. This has been an absolute unmitigated disaster for anybody taking Buffalo, laying points along the board here. We have it, just to double check, it's still, at 7 for the contest, so nothing changes there. I mean, I'm inclined to just take the 7 point. I'm inclined to take any points against Buffalo at this point, outside of maybe like 1 or 2 teams in the NFL. I don't think the Jets are that team. I know they beat them earlier, but this is a motivated Jets team that still has a sliver of playoff hope, Walter.
Yeah, like last week, Denver was my favorite play against Buffalo, and I think that like the Jets I like just as much here. This line is way too high. It has not adjusted for like how bad Buffalo has been, and for anyone who's kept betting Buffalo, expecting them to bounce back, like I don't know if they're in a cardboard box right now on the street, but like it's a pretty rough scene for them. Buffalo reminds me of Tampa Bay last year. I talked about this last week, where everyone just kept expecting Tampa Bay to bounce back. They had ugly losses, like they lost to the Steelers, they would lose to the Panthers, they look bad against the Saints on Monday night, they lost to the Browns. Like people kept betting them, and they just never bounced back. They had 2 covers, I think, after like week 2 or something like that. They beat the Seahawks in Germany and they beat the Panthers in week 17. Like otherwise they just kept losing. And like Buffalo reminds me of that. Like they have not covered the spread since that big Miami win in week 4. And it's because they've lost so many players to injury. Like half their defense is out, and they're ranked dead last in EPA defensively right now. Like, so I feel like the Jets should be able to move the ball at least somewhat well. And like, that's what they've done. They just self-destructed in the red zone. So as long as they don't do that, I feel like the Jets are the right play here. And just like, if you're still not convinced, just remember Buffalo lost to New England. Like
right.
They lost to New England, like the team that can't beat Washington after they traded Montez Sweat and Chase Young, and like the team that had like Washington, the Patriots have not done anything since then either. So like, how bad is this Buffalo team? I think that I make lines for myself before the spreads come out, or before I look at the spreads. And I made this Buffalo -1. I knew that it wasn't going to be -1 and it was going to be inflated, but like based on how these teams have played, you could argue the Jets have been the better team, and they've also owned Buffalo in the past 3 matchups. They're 2-1 straight off, 3-0 against the spread against Buffalo. Like they've had Josh Allen's number, so yeah, the Jets look great to me.
All right, love that at +7. So initially, I jumped on this game thinking, all right, 3 seemed like a fine number, trying to wait to see what's going on with Matthew Stafford. Then starting to look at this number, knowing that I lost a little bit of it. But the Rams at even money were really appealing to me. And I know that the LA Rams have been struggling, and I know that we missed Seattle last week as far as a really good bounce back spot, cover spot. I know they win, but barely. I don't know. It didn't feel reactionary. You start to look at McVay versus Carroll in this series, knowing that there's been ups and downs with teams and all the different things from injury to just who's available and who's on the team each year. But it would seem like the Rams have a pretty strong stranglehold. 9-1 ATS last 10 against Seattle overall, and 5-0 when Seattle comes off a covered win. I get that last week was their chance. I don't know if they still, right? I don't still feel that way about Seattle, Walt, as I did last week heading into that game against Washington about bouncing back from that just ridiculous loss that they suffered at Baltimore. This feels more like a true matchup, coaches, series type division game, as opposed to trying to take advantage of circumstances that surrounded the team the previous week.
Seattle's been so unimpressive. They had that big win on Monday night against the Giants, and it looked good at the time, but we've seen how bad the Giants are since. Um, like ever since that game, like you just look at their results. Like they had trouble putting Washington away in an obvious bounce back spot. They were just blown out by Baltimore. So it's not even close. Which is like you can forgive. I mean, Detroit had the same sort of loss, but before that, they had trouble putting away Arizona. That was a 7-point game before Arizona attempted a fake punt, and then Seattle got a field goal at the end. It was 20-10. Before that, they almost lost to Cleveland playing Philip Walker. So, like, this team has not played well in about a month. And so, yeah, I'm inclined to take the Rams. If you like the Rams a lot, I definitely will have them on the card. My only concern with them is Stafford's thumb injury. Like, is he 100%? We just don't know that. The practice reports say he's practicing in full, but that's what Joe Burrow was practicing, like, with that calf injury, and he was not 100%. So, I wish we had like a better understanding of Stafford's situation, but if he's 100% or close to it, I think the Rams should be able to win pretty easily. As you said, like they've had this matchup edge against Seattle. It's one of those weird divisional things, like mentioned before. Like the Giants have played well against Washington, the Jets have played well against Buffalo. It's the same sort of situation here. So the only concern I have is Stafford's thumb, but if you're okay with it, I can put it on the card.
Yeah, I'm okay with it for now. I think that we're getting ahead of this, if anything, and if we find out that it's business as usual, then I don't think this shoots back down. If anything, this dropped as a result of some sharp money, I would guess, with the expectation of Stafford playing. So I think we're ahead of this. I don't know if it moves through zero, but it's already moved enough for me that we still have some value, I think, at one, especially since it just came down from 3, not like it came down from 5.5 or something along those lines. So that's fine. Absolutely. I get it. There's risk right now associated with Stafford and that thumb injury, but still better if he's playing than the alternative by all means. Carson Wentz, right, is the alternative right now. So
better than Brett Rippon.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I would not take the Rams if it were Brett Rippon as a possibility of playing.
Never again.
No. This is going to test, right? Let's put Walt's feet to the fire here. His Denver Broncos come off an absolute smash last week, but here comes the team that I refuse to fade. I bet them right at the jump of the week, and I'll stick to my guns here. I love Minnesota again. Clearly, there is something going on with this football team. I'm not taking anything at all away from Denver. This line is probably sharper than it appears, even though the Broncos were dog shit before their previous 2 wins, which came against good teams. Buffalo's still like a good team on paper. So at some point, Denver's going to let down. We know that Minnesota's not going to let down. So either Denver is just the better football team or they let down, but I'm willing to take the risk on both of those and take Minnesota +2.
Yeah, I like Minnesota as well. Those 2 wins may look impressive on paper, but if you think about it, like Buffalo has just been so bad. Again, they lost to the Patriots, so how good can they be, right? So, and before that, they beat the Chiefs, but they were outgained in yards and yards per play, and the Chiefs were looking ahead to that Germany game. So, and plus Mahomes had the flu in that game too. So, yeah, I don't know how impressive these wins are for Denver. I loved them last week because of the Buffalo fade, and not just necessarily them. But Minnesota has been so good this year. It's so weird that they're the opposite of what they were last year. Like last year, they were winning fluky games, and they had a terrible defense, and you knew they were going to come crashing down to earth at some point. Whereas this year, their defense is a lot better. They're ranked 7th in EPA. Their offensive line is awesome. They might be getting Justin Jefferson back this week. It's just like the only thing you don't really like about them is the running game. But Denver's really bad against the run, so they might be able to get something on the ground. So I think Minnesota is a better team, and yeah, if you want them on the card, I'm good with that.
Yeah, I think we're in good shape here. And again, we'll go back. We have 8 right now. Last game is our Eagles versus the Chiefs. Man, when you were describing what Minnesota was last year, I feel like that's what the Eagles are this year, especially with the defense and questions about it. On the other side of this is Spags. He has done wonders with this defense. Clearly a different feel on D than just in the Super Bowl when they beat the Eagles. So it's 2.5. And I get that there's always going to be an immediate lean right here for a favorite laying only 2.5 versus the dog coming in. I have not bet this game. I don't know if I will bet this game, to be honest with you. I don't know if I have a strong enough feel right now. My gut would say just lay the 2.5 at home, but then the same part of me wants to take the plus 124 or better on the money line for the Eagles. So what do you think on this one?
Yeah, I kind of like the Chiefs. I'm not in love with this game, but the Eagles defense is by far the worst unit that we're going to see on the field this week, and the Chiefs defense has been pretty impressive. They're in the top 10 of EPA rankings, but the Eagles defense has just not been able to do anything. And I think that your comparison to the Vikings from last year is great because, like, if you think about it, the Eagles are 8-1, but they easily could have lost to Washington that first time. In fact, they could have lost to Washington both times, really. They were inches away from losing to Dallas in that game a couple weeks ago. If the Eagles were 6-3 instead of 8-1, would the spread be 3 or 3.5? I think that there's a chance that could be the case. And you also have Andy Reid coming off a bye. He's 18-10 against the spread off a bye in his career. Just really impressive. Although Nick Sirianni 2-0 against the spread off a bye, so maybe in a decade we'll be talking about his great record off a bye. But right. I mean, Andy Reid is obviously the trusted source here. Like, anytime you get more time to prepare with a great coach and a great team, you just have to take it. So yeah, I like the Chiefs here. Just I like some of the other games more. But the Chiefs look pretty good.
What do you think? That doesn't sound like either one of us really want this on the card, right? Even though we're leaning Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, if you were like, yeah, I really want the Chiefs on the card, I'd like, yeah, sure. But yeah, it sounds like you're not in love with it either. So
no,
yeah, it could be
and
just
I
like a
don't want
small
to
bet.
force that game because that's when personal biases and all this other stuff start to pop in there. So
Yeah.
that's why I didn't want to force. I was hoping you'd make the decision for me, which you kind of did. So
Yeah, well, we like 8 other games, so might as well stick through those.
All right, so Carolina's got to stay. Chicago, let's go. All right, let's look at what we both love, right? I think we're both on Carolina very strong. I think we're both on Miami pretty strong, right?
Mm-hmm.
Looking at this here early in the week, I got this at 6. So I'm on your side. I'm on Jacksonville -6 from a betting standpoint, from the contest standpoint, absolutely at 7. That's fine too. So those right now, those 3, and the Niners being 4, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, we have to remove 4, and we leave 1 left.
3.
Oh, we have to remove. Oh, we have 7 on the card. I thought we had 8.
Yeah, we have 8.
Okay, so the Rams at +1. I worry about Stafford's thumb, but like I said, if you're okay, so remove that one.
No. I'm with you on that. I don't have that level of concern. That's a really good mark for me. I don't have that level of concern with anything else that I like on our card as I do with the Rams and Stafford. So that's an easy one to take off for me as well.
Okay.
You love Chicago, huh?
I like that. Well, I like them a lot more when they were +10. And at +7.5, I mean, it's still pretty good, but it doesn't sound like you're in love with them either. So I feel like, we both have to be like pretty in love with some of these games. Like we have 7 to choose from now. So yeah, I think we could take Chicago off if you want. What does it come down to? It's coming down to Chicago, Jets, Vikings. Is there another one that I'm saying?
It's pretty much those 3 right now: Chicago, Jets, Vikings.
So we have to choose one of those 3, right? I think I'm more inclined. If I had a vote in this, I would say,
rank it.
I would go. My rankings are Jets, Bears, Vikings. What's your? How do you rank them?
Vikings, Jets, Bears, but I'm willing to make a compromise because it's 1-2. It's not like it's 1-3, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let's take the Bears and the Vikings off. And now we have the Jets, the Niners, the Jags, the Dolphins, and the Panthers. I like that card a lot.
Yeah, I do too. A lot of some people would be like, "Oh, you guys have so many big favorites here." Well, I mean, we have
Well,
two
we have a
double.
big dog.
Right, that's true. We have two double-digit favorites. But those have actually done really well. In ever since the lockout happened in 2010. Um, they've just these high spreads have covered at a high rate, and I think it's because a lot of these big underdogs don't practice as much after all the practice schedules changed, and so they just can't have as good of a game plan against these superior teams. So I think that really has impacted them. So um, I was actually just looking up the how double digit spreads have done since 2010, and they are that's not correct, but yeah, they're hitting about like 58 to 60% against the spread.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, but
Good
that's
number,
supposed.
man.
Yeah, it's mostly like home favorites too. Like road favorites have not done as well either. So that'll help us out in that Carolina Dallas game.
Absolutely. And we're fading, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're fading both Tampa on the road and the Raiders on the road in big spots for them, which we don't buy. We don't buy. All right, there you have it. This, of course, is walterfootball.com. Give you one more look at this link here. And again, the sportsbook promos are there. Picks for week 11 are here. Fantasy football, DFS, whatever you want on here, Walt has you covered, including, of course, the draft, jerks of the week. It's amazing, man. PGA championship bets, when that thing rolls back around, you guys do it all. It's not just Walter Football on here.
Yeah, we're doing so well with our golf bets. Someone's like, "Oh, you should start waltergolf.com." Like like at the end of the year, we hit like 6 winners out of the last 11 tournaments. It was kind of insane. So yeah, like during the off season, well, in addition to the mock drafts, we're gonna have golf picks, NBA picks against the spread too. So yeah, tons of content all year, including like season previews and fantasy rankings for the year ahead.
Awesome, brother. One more time, take a look at this. Dolphins minus 13.5, Panthers plus 10.5, Jags minus 7, Niners minus 12, Jets plus 7. Love it. Appreciate you all rolling with us. Again, walterfootball.com, odd shopper. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, and take advantage of these links. Walt has them for you. My goodness. We'll see you
Yeah.
next week, bud.
All
Oh,
right.
go ahead.
No,
No.
I was say, like, why not? Why not click the links? You get those $1,500 dollars back in bonus bets. Like, it sounds like an amazing deal. I wish I didn't have an account so I could sign up myself.
I know, right? And it's like, oh man, I did that 2 years ago. That's
Yeah.
right. Now you know. Now you know out there. All right, we'll see you. Have a great week.
All right, see you. Bye.